Welcome to the CMO Chapter podcast, where we dive deep into the dynamic world of Chief Marketing Officers. Join us as we explore the careers, insights, and strategies of top marketing executives who shape the brands we know and love. Whether you're a seasoned marketer, aspiring CMO, or simply just curious to understand what it really takes to step into the shoes of a CMO. This podcast is your backstage pass to discovering what it's like to really lead and innovate in the ever-evolving landscape of business. Stay tuned as we uncover the stories of the visionaries behind the brand. I am super delighted today to be joined by Edan Haddock, the one and only. Welcome, Edan.
The one and only? Actually, I think I am the one and only. I don't think there's anyone else in the world with my name. I can't find anyone anyway.
So Edan is the head of talent at Movember, but I'm going to let Edan introduce himself. So take the floor.
I am. Well, that's probably the best place to start to introduce myself. Hello, everyone. I am Edan Haddock, and yes, I am head of talent at Movember. I look after, as it sounds, so talent and development for Movember, and that is at a global level. A lot of people don't realise just how big our footprint is at Movember. So I look after the Australian market, I look after Canada, I look after the UK and Europe. I also look after the United States. So we're all over. We're quite a big family at Movember.
Yeah, you're everywhere. And you've had a background, you were REA previously as well, is that right?
Yeah, I did a really fabulous parental leave cover when I returned to the workforce at REA. And I think this is, something we may touch on a little bit later when we're talking about job seeking. I did 18 months of freelancing at the time. My intention was to continue freelancing because it was a little bit lucrative at the time and the market was quite buoyant. And well, that all died. So I was, looking for a permanent role, and, I kind of opened my mind and thought, well, look, I've been kind of, as recruiters would look at, out of work, even though I wasn't, for 18 months. So I really thought, well, I'm going to bite the bullet and take a contract role and learn as much as I can, from quite a large organization. I hadn't really worked for a large tech company like REA, and REA is quite a big beast. And it was, a large team that I was looking after. I had 6 direct reports, and I learnt so much. And I think without that experience, I wouldn't have been successful in the appointment here at Movember. So I absolutely loved that gig. Prior to that, as I said, freelancing, and that was doing all sorts. I was doing team development workshops where I was teaching floristry. I was doing freelance recruitment. I helped teach year 10 students for a week. I did all sorts of things, which was really fun. And then prior to that, leading talent acquisition teams, Flybys and AIA Australia prior to that. And then I go way back with loads of recruitment roles, but you don't want to hear all of that. Going back too far and making me feel old.
You've done a lot. Well, we're sort of mixing it up, I guess, with this particular episode. So I wanted to get Edan on the podcast today to really talk about, as you know, the whole episode itself, the series, I should say, is called the CMO Chapters. However, and really, I mean, I normally have CMOs and, leaders, executive leaders within the marketing space. But I felt, given we know what the market's currently doing at the moment, we know it can be like navigating the gauntlet out there, especially if you are currently not working. I felt, I wanted to get someone who, was credible, knew their stuff, but was coming at it, as a head of talent. So someone who can actually, if anything, offer any advice or, anything that, I think could help specifically any marketers out there that are finding it frustrating for whatever reason, and perhaps not getting the cut through that they want. And I know, Edan has been in the market, across talent acquisition for a long time. So I'm sure there might be some maybe tips or, wise words of wisdom that you'll be able to sprinkle as well.
I hope so. I'm not known for my wise words of wisdom, but I'll give it a good crack.
So shall we start by kicking off? I guess, do you want to, give us a little, as much as you can obviously share, but a bit more sort of, a behind the scenes look at how Movember approaches hiring in general?
Yeah, look, we've actually taken a pretty sharp turn to the left when it comes to identifying and assessing talent. I would say we were, quite traditional in the way we went to market. We would advertise a role, we would go through CVs,
Uh,
we would talk about what the benefits are of working for Movember. And one of the big pieces that I tackled very early on, I've been with Movember 6 months now. One of the big things for me is when I was talking to talent, they didn't seem really interested in what our benefits were. And
yeah.
even though they're really strong, right? We've got a really great
Mm.
MVP, but uh, people were really wanting to connect to Movember due to personal stories and how they have been impacted by men's health. Now, I'm not just talking about men. The real face of men's health is all of us. It's yourself. It's my sister. It's it's everyone's got a husband. Everyone's got a brother or a father
Mm.
or a close friend or their husband's mate or we all have men in our lives
Yeah.
and we're all
Good.
touched by men's health. So the conversations I was having with talent very, very early on as I picked up all of those open roles and tried to fill them with my hand over is, people were just telling me they're and quite being quite vulnerable
Uh,
well, and quite authentic and saying, look, examples would be I'm working in the corporate world. We're a money making business. Our primary purpose is to make money. We do really good things and we look after our people, but I just want to connect, and make a difference. And whether that is with Movember or whether that is with, you know, um, Cancer Victoria,
well, you
whatever it might be, Alzheimer's Victoria, whatever cause they're connected to, what we're seeing in 2025 is that people are kind of reassessing what their purpose in life is
yeah,
and the linkage between their employment and I think, that job satisfaction is less about, ping pong tables and,
uh,
social drinks on a Friday arvo, right? I think those days are long gone. I think people want to get out of bed to know that what they're doing is something that is connected to them on an emotional level.
100%. Yeah, yeah. We don't need the pizza Fridays or the
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So we've really taken a shift there, and we've really revamped our employer brand, given it a fresh
Mm.
look, and really got that message out there. That working with Movember, there are three reasons. It's a good cause. We raise. You're raising millions for men's health. You're not raising money for a CEO's bonus or for
Exactly.
shareholders, right? You're raising money to really have an impact and those millions of dollars do a whole lot of good, right? Like it's life-saving medicine. It's making cancer treatments less one size fits all. We're doing research. We're lobbying governments to really get men's health on the table
Uh,
so we can shift this style because men are dying too young. And there's still that stigma around, men not necessarily looking after their health or going to the doctor and, keeping that stiff upper
yeah,
lip that
100%.
yeah, so that's really amazing, but really the vibes are there though. Like we do have that amazing culture. So we talk about the good vibes and whether it's, during what we call the hairy season during November campaign time, we have celebrities coming in, we have live stunts on TV. When we hit a fundraising milestone, we all get together and do a big conga line across the world, right? Like we do it's
Amazing.
quirky as all hell, right? Like it's a really quirky place to work, but those vibes we're really proud of. And then really it's around our people, these are decent, solid human
Yeah,
beings. There's no egos. They're people, like I said, that want to come to Movember to do good in the world. So you've got people that just have really kind hearts. Like we've got a really kind culture and people doing incredible work. Like I talked to, our research team, our advocacy team, our Movember Institute. They're just so incredibly intelligent, but so incredibly accessible. And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
sad, so that's kind of how we've repurposed it. That's our story, and that's what we're proud of. It's less about how much the role pays. It's less about what the benefits are. It's like, hey, here we are, and
yeah.
we've kind of summarized that as do good, work for Movember, and I say for Movember because you're working for a cause, that could be quite controversial because people will say, well, you work with an organization, not for one, but you're working for a cause and you're working for greater good. And yeah,
100%.
yeah. So we've kind of shifted all of that in terms of how we go to market it and trying to really hyper personalize the experience that candidates have when they reach out to say, "Hey, I want to do good, and I want
Yes.
to." So we've invested in, technology, and I say invest. It's actually incredibly cost effective these days to have a really good SaaS tech stack, and it's actually saved us money. Yet it's
Yeah.
allowing us to be more engaging, and also having an always on approach. If you have a story and you've been touched by men's health, as all of us have in some way, and you want to come and do good for us, don't wait for a role, just start talking to me, and I'm there to talk about it.
Love it.
So, yeah, very sharp turn, as I said, but we're seeing the results already. We've had so many people register, and we've only gone live with that over, within the last month. So it's pretty exciting for us.
Yeah, I find that quite it just so forward thinking in general. And I love that you've just shared that, look, don't wait for a role. If there's something there, just reach out to me because my next question, I guess, I look at Movember and I know a few, leaders certainly within the business who I would rate as, absolutely exceptional leaders, really, as you said, very kind, authentic individuals. And you've got a fantastic brand, you're doing some absolutely incredible work. And I agree. I think, there's so much there that naturally people would want to be part of.
Hmm.
What do you do when we're in a market when we've got so many people and there's just honestly not enough jobs? How are you handling that?
Yeah. Well, and you know what? I was there, right? Like, I talked about the REA role and I found it incredibly frustrating. And I think it's one of the reasons, well, I know it's one of the reasons I've been really passionate to change the way we approach to talent engagement because
Yeah,
I work for an organization that, like we say, it's men's health, but, mental health is a huge part of that. And I have to say, I was very deflated after some of the experiences of applying for roles. I think, you know, it's hard in this market because yes, there are more people looking for roles than there are roles, and there are really talented people
yeah,
that are finding it challenging to find that role. And I'll say that particularly at a leadership level. I know quite a lot
right,
of people at chief operating, chief marketing, and even CEO level that have been in a holding pattern for quite some time. I think
yeah,
really, if you can find organizations that have that connection where you can actually express your interest and share your story, do it. I'm not the only one that has a talent community. A lot of other organizations do. I think this is really where you see organizations with really strong values that really value people. You will see that they will have that option. Uh, but oh gosh, it's so hard to say. But it's Lucy. It's almost like we do need to wait and be patient and do everything that
yeah,
we can to build our personal brands, our own employee brands, I suppose I would describe it, our, candidate brands, our digital footprint, really getting out there and making sure that what we're putting forward is a really solid representation of who we are. Um, rather than, I received previously, it doesn't happen now in our new systems, but AI generated CVs that would just be flicked on, and I
yeah,
would see they were on every role, and I can only assume they were getting sent everywhere and they weren't relevant,
yeah,
right? So, just personalize as much as you can and get your story out there in the world of AI, and we'll probably talk more about that. But I'm
yeah,
I'm more interested in the human than I am in how you've formatted and written your CV, I suppose. So, um, because I use AI, and yeah, I'd have AI write my CV for me. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Yeah.
yeah. And this is it. I mean, I guess, and I get exactly what you're saying because, I've had a few, I'm going to say more AI tech savvy people actually say this to me. We look now at, the revolution of AI, but you kind of go, well, what's going to happen? People are going to get JDs and then they're going to have a CV and then they're going to press a button and then we're going to go like magic, magic, magic. And then all of a sudden they've got the perfect CV because it's all
Mhm.
based on, so I just think, as recruiters, and I'll include myself in this, we are in a bit of, it's a new world, a new era where we're having to sort of like, and I'm like you, I want to bring back the human element, let's bring that back because yeah, nowadays when CVs are being completely, AI generated, exactly right. My next question I want to touch on. So I do speak to lots of marketers every single day across a range of different of levels, of course. I speak to some, and honestly, they've got probably like 6 or 7 different CVs now because in their mind, we've got to beat these bots that are scanning our CVs because when we apply for roles, if you don't have keywords on it, you're not going to get in for that particular role. So and it's become quite a thing, certainly from a lot of, people. And people are saying, what's your advice on that? And sometimes I think, well, God, I honestly don't even know where to start. Like, it depends obviously on the role. But as somebody who's not, I've not invented those platforms myself. I mean, is that true? Is that a case where, that's happening?
To a degree, but I would advise, don't treat it like SEO, right? Like, it's not
Yeah.
picking up keywords and search words. That's not the way they're working. There are platforms that will, I suppose, give you a bit of a rating score based on your experience and your skills. So there are skills-based platforms. I don't know whether I'm into that, but they're out there,
Yeah.
and I've used them. So what will happen there, from a back end, from a recruiter's point of view, that are using one of those platforms, is that you will have your job description in there, and you'll be saying you're looking for the X amount of experience, and you are looking for skills, whether that's, if it's technology, it could be like coding languages. If it's marketing, it could be things like, product thinking, design thinking, whatever it might be, right? So, and then it will match to see whether you've got that experience on your profile, not necessarily CV, but on your profile. And then it will give you a ranking, whether that's 1 to 5 or 1 to 10.
Yeah. Okay.
What it won't do is it won't do an order of your application. Like, it doesn't jump around and say, put this person right up to the top. It will give that ranking next to your profile. Now, most recruiters, particularly at this stage, aren't necessarily trusting those matches.
Yeah.
Uh, my advice there, and if I'm to use, I use a platform called Team Tailor, and I believe I'm one of the early users in Australia, but I believe we'll be seeing a lot more because it's become huge in particularly in Europe and the United Kingdom. But your LinkedIn profile is actually embedded into your application.
Ah.
So when you actually submit your details to me, your LinkedIn profile is there. And I also ask, and here we go, yeah, everyone's going to go, oh my gosh, but I ask for a free written cover letter, not an attachment cover letter. It's almost like a pitch when you're applying for a role. And that's where, yeah, that's where a candidate will tell me their personal story.
Mm,
CV is there. Now I go personal story,
yeah.
LinkedIn, then CV. CV comes third
Yeah.
in
Okay.
the list. It's the third thing I look at. Now, does everyone do that? Not necessarily. The only advice I would give, and probably not, in all honesty, but I think at this stage, but I think, when applying for roles and having those different CVs, have a skeleton CV that really covers your core experience, mirrors your LinkedIn, and then just kind of tailor it to the role. If the position description you're looking at has some things with a higher weighting in terms of what they're looking for, bring that up,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
expand on it. So have a skeleton CV and just tweak it and tailor it before you 5 minutes, right? Or whack it into ChatGPT and get them to do it for you. Like, and when that's totally fine, but just make sure you read it before you
Yeah.
do and edit it. So yeah, and that's truly, I think, all it is. But from my perspective, LinkedIn is really, really important. I raise an eyebrow when I see a LinkedIn profile that isn't quite matching what I'm seeing when I do on
Yeah.
TV. Um, different job titles, and different dates is a really bad one. Or
Yeah.
yeah, keep that up to date. That's your go-to LinkedIn. Yeah,
Great. I think I always say to anyone like exactly what you've just shared, keep it, what's on your CV needs to be absolutely correct on what's on your LinkedIn, 100%. I'm really curious to know. So, you've got a very thorough process, it seems, as well, from a sort of back end perspective. We've spoken about AI and digital, technologies, etc. But bringing that human element, it's hard when we're applying for roles where it is absolutely through digital channels. So, what advice do you have for candidates that honestly just want to remain, they want to stand out, they want to kind of, they want to be seen. And I know that comes down to probably a little bit about personal branding, but what would be your top sort of pitch around advice on that?
Well, if you do apply for a role in and you see a platform like the one that I'm using for Movember, I have an optional tell us more about yourself. People are embedding Spotify playlists,
Yeah, right.
secret skills.
Okay.
They're telling me, a surprising fact about themselves. They're telling me the funniest joke they've ever heard. Like they can do all of that with
Yeah,
more and
wonderful.
more of that. Because we're in an age of AI in the talent and recruitment industry, this personalization, you're going to see more and more and
Yeah,
more of it, because the human element and the human skills are what we're really focusing on elevating. Because we know AI can do a lot of our work now, and we're in this exciting phase. Like we love what's going on because we can now have those deeper connections with people. So if you do see an option to put a cover letter in, do it. Even if it's optional, anything that's optional, do
do it.
do it. Just do it. And bring out as much as you can. And I just think, you it's okay to. Oh, recruiters are going to kill me. I'm sorry, everyone, but I'm good with a LinkedIn connection. Connect with me if you're applying for a role. I love it because I know you're looking into Movember more, and I know you're looking
Yeah,
for an
yeah, yeah.
experience. I know I'm going to talk to you. You're going to know a bit about me. You know,
I think it's important, and look, yeah, I think, and this is why I wanted to get you on because personally, look, I'm a huge fan of Movember. I think what the business does is fantastic, but it's so hard because I'll be honest, as a recruitment in the agency side, I'm on the other end of it where and I'm sure you hear the same as well, your end, but lots of frustration around, I'm seeing a role and there's 300 applicants applying for it on LinkedIn. And why the hell do I want to join that party? And unfortunately, we know there's some businesses that probably aren't as organized as people like yourselves, and yeah, they don't hear back or whatever. And yeah, there's obviously, we know some stories out there. So I wanted to give again that opportunity to sort of, yeah, set the record straight.
yeah, you're totally, and don't feel. I mean, your CV. If you can make your, I say CV, but your application, your cover letter, if you can stand out in that 300, go for it.
Yeah.
Why? Because someone's got to get the job, regardless of whether it's 20 or 300 applications. Just put the effort in.
Yeah. If you got any examples of any successful examples around how you may have placed somebody and they have stood out and maybe they approached it in a bit of a different way.
Yeah, I will give a Movember example, and this lovely gentleman is doing incredibly well with us as well. So he's one of my hires. But like I mentioned during handover, we were quite far down the process of a global director role, and there was a candidate that reached out to me and shared with me a lot on LinkedIn. And we were sort of at that second round stage with a couple of preferred candidates, and I wasn't necessarily looking at putting anyone else into the mix, but they applied right at the end of that process. He sent me YouTube links of him. I mean, this is a role that, was in the kind of marketing and publicity kind of
Mm,
space. So events that he had done, he sent me things from his portfolio. And I just thought I'm going to check this out. Like this guy's
yeah.
really going for it. Like he seems really talented. Let me just watch one of these videos. I was like, oh, he's cool. He's done
Yeah.
amazing work, amazing work. And then I just continued on that. And then I went to our chief marketing officer and said, I need to throw a last minute in. I'm going to delay everything, but you need to see this person. So I think, do it. I mean, I think at the end of the day, even though we're busy, I think recruiters are kind people, and they will, give you that time of day to
Yeah.
get yourself in front of them where they can. And that's been a real success story for us.
Yeah.
And if I mean, I was busy, right? But I could have taken the lazy path and said,
Yeah.
no, it's going to get filled. But I could see, because of that interaction
Yeah.
and the personalization that he provided. I've listened to your podcast, Eden. I love what Movember's doing. I'm like, oh, okay, I've got to chat to this guy.
Love
Like,
it.
and then it worked out. So,
Yeah, that's great. That's a really good example. I think it's hard as well. I mean, I've heard some really interesting stories about how people have, bought donuts into their application and they've done all sorts, and I'm like, what, fair play, like good on you, whether it sinks or fails or whatever, I think at least it shows creative
do
thinking.
you know what? Creative thinking, creativity is the most important skill set in an AI world. That because our creative minds are what sets us apart from a machine. And I think organizations are investing in creativity and creative thinking because all of that other stuff can now get done and can be
Yeah.
automated. So absolutely be creative. That's what we're looking for. In fact, it's the number one already on LinkedIn. The number one word, like if you do skills, looking for
Yay.
skills on LinkedIn job ads, the number one skill worldwide that
Uh-huh.
people are looking for already is creativity.
Okay. Okay. And I guess finally, I wanted to ask, there's a lot of people we know out there that, some at early stages, some at the very tail end and are absolutely over it in terms of looking for work. I certainly, I mean, I share my advice, but I'd love to get your perspective. Is there a specific routine or advice that you would say, what, if I was out of work and, the top 3 or 4 absolute go-tos are, what would they be?
Oh, so we're like seeking work at the moment. I think, we've covered off quite a few of them
Yeah.
because I think that personalization of your application is really important. I think connecting to what the business does, and it's okay. I really want to stress this. It's okay if you're someone that wants to work for a money making business. Like I work for a charity, right? And I love working for a charity. I've worked for organizations where it's all about the shareholder, and I've loved working
Yeah.
for them as well, right? Like that's okay. But I think you just need to find that connection with the purpose and the values and to really bring that to life.
Uh,
Like I said, I think recruiters and execs as well, or any whoever is recruiting the role with the recruiter for your audience, that they're really seeing the power in that human connection and people that are connected to purpose, vision, values, whatever it might be. So I think take the time to research that. It's all available for you. The other thing is find, and you're gonna love me for saying this, Lucy. You're gonna love me, right? Like, find a really good search firm and one
yes.
that you really connect with, right? And not every single search firm under the sun that's going to send you details everywhere. Find someone that will really partner with you and help
Uh,
you on that journey and bring out the best in you. Like I, we're a charity. We don't spend money because it's our fun losing money, but there are times where we need people like you, Lucy, because whether
mm,
confidential hire or whether it's one that we know is a really unique skill set and we know that you have a really strong network in that space, right? Like my advice to job seekers is find your Lucy. I'm
yeah.
hoping it is Lucy, but if it's not that, I'm sure that's okay.
Shit, well, it obviously will be, but anyway.
Yeah, and I have to say, when I was going through that challenging time of looking for a role, although I wasn't placed by an agency in either of the roles I got, I spent a lot of time with particularly one recruitment agency that gave me really solid sound advice
Yeah, good.
and also lifted my spirits, just telling me what's going on in the
Yeah.
market and telling me what organizations are going to look to scale up and when they're going to, and what's happening in different regions and all sorts and
Yeah.
trends, and helping me identify the right salary range for myself,
Mm,
all of that, right? All of the wonderful work that you do. I think find that one that you can really, really partner with is
yeah.
incredibly important.
Yeah. Look, I agree. I mean, it's there's a lot of people as well who are experiencing redundancies for the first time. And there's been times when I have connected them with somebody else that, maybe has been and done it and this is their third redundancy or whatever, but they're probably, maybe a little bit more experienced. And I've said, look, go, I'm going to connect you guys on LinkedIn, go for a coffee, because as
Yeah.
much as I, as a recruiter, can give my advice, and I certainly say, number one, it's always mental health. Like I say, set a routine. When you're not working, all of a sudden, first week, it's all like, oh my gosh, can do whatever, la la la,
Oh, yeah.
and that soon wears off, as we know.
The
And then
boredom sets in, definitely. And the
exactly, and I just
fear,
say,
and
yeah,
it's horrible time. It's a really horrible time. Yeah.
yeah, but I just say routine, get up, go to the gym, have that, and I think, yeah, the scrolling on LinkedIn is enough to drive any of us crazy
Oh,
sometimes.
tell me
Minimize
about it.
that.
I have to do it all day, right? So do you. It does drive us nuts, but I think, you're right. Like, get out there and have coffees, get out there and network, get out there and meet people. It is so good for your mental health regardless, but you're also just learning. You're learning so much, and it's building, that resilience muscle. It's getting an understanding of what's going on in everyone else as well. Get yourself outside of your head for a little while and listen to someone else. Like, I think the trap when you are in, and I fell into that trap, is that you will sit on the computer all day long going through job ads and submitting applications. You get to the other end of that process, and you've driven yourself insane.
Oh yeah.
It's, for the most part, and I'm glad that we're, playing a part in shifting the dial with Movember when it comes to applying for roles, but it is a horrible, horrible labor intensive time. And, like, you've got to log in and then you've got to copy your details again. And, then you've forgotten your password and you've got to resign it. And every single role you have to go through that same
Yeah.
process. So, it's about being kind to yourself and being kind to others. Like, just get out there and talk to people, have as many coffees as you can, as
Yeah.
many Zoom calls as you can, whatever. Like, if it's not doable to do that in person, I think just talk,
Uh,
will save your sanity, because it's not a nice time. And, I can't let your audience know that it's ever going to be a nice time, because it's just not. And
it's
how
yeah,
you
it's
handle it is key, I think.
yeah. I think what you've shared there is definitely wise words. I think, yeah, 100%. I know it's going to really resonate with our listeners as well. And I think I've really enjoyed our conversation because, as a recruiter in the world of agency on the other side, I think I could say, well, they do this and we'll be doing this. But then I think it just makes so much of an added extra punch in a good way when it comes from someone who's sat, actually at a head of level internally. So thank you so
Well,
much.
thank
Really enjoyed
you.
it.
It's been so great. I've really enjoyed catching up, and I hope there was something there that will help people that are seeking at the moment, and do know my empathy is there with you, and I'm always here if you need a chat. And if you're interested in Movember, jump on to the Movember page on careers.movember.com and click the connect button. And it's always on. You can register anytime. So
Absolutely. And I'm sure you'll be open to like LinkedIn connections and
yeah,
requests.
LinkedIn me. And, yeah, I'm always there. I'm always
Love
there. I like to talk.
it. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Eden. You've been fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Lucy.
Remember, the road to CMO isn't always linear. It's filled with challenges, decisions, and moments of transformation. Whether you're charting your course or navigating a career shift, the experiences, wisdom shared today, as with our guests, is invaluable. Thank you for joining us. Keep dreaming big, keep pushing boundaries, and remember that your journey towards becoming a CMO is as much about the destination as it is about the growth you experience along the way. Until next time, continue to innovate, evolve, and carve out your path to CMO.